Hi, welcome to our presentation titled Increasing Teacher Legal Literacy.
I'm Clementine Castro. I work here at Loyola Marymount University and I am a Place Core Program Associate. I have been in Catholic higher education at LMU for the last 14 years. I've been a product of Catholic education and have substituted and done some administrative work in the Catholic schools in and around Southern California. I also have 3 years in the legal field where I focus on corporate immigration law and also eminent domain. So I love talking about legal issues. Antonio?
Thank you, Clementine. My name is Antonio Felix. I am the director of the Place Core program at Loyola Marymount University. I have 18 years in Catholic education in many roles as a teacher, director of marketing and development, and also as a school principal. My research interests are centered around the diversification of the teaching workforce in Catholic schools, and I'm grateful to be able to be with Clementine and all of you this day.
So before we get started, we'd love to go through the agenda with you so we know where we're going today during our presentation. So we'll provide an introduction to our presentation, go through the problem of practice, discuss outcomes, dive into context, and then into legal literacy and action. And then we'll wrap up with next steps and also make sure to mention those references along the way.
So as we approach our introduction, it's important that we look at these 4 tenets, if you will, and kind of direct us as to what has called us to this work. Catholic educators, like their public school counterparts, often find themselves facing legal issues in areas that perhaps were once unimagined. Sister Shaughnessy tells us this often, for example, that it is safe to argue that issues surrounding cyberbullying and or the sharing of digital created resources among teachers were not discussed as possible areas of litigation 10 to 15 years ago. And as a result, many teachers and administrators in the Catholic school sector, of course, they have expressed exhaustion and exasperation at the many plethora of seemingly new issues that are often facing Catholic schools. These new laws and new regulations that tend to emerge on a regular basis are causing us all to have sleepless nights. Which really brings us to the presentation's main question. What is legal literacy in Catholic education? The understanding of legal literacy has undergone a shift in recent times. It has gone from our basic understanding that legal literacy kind of often looked at a person's ability to be able to read legal documents, understand legal documents, and interpret them. But that has shifted as we look at legal literacy in the realm of education. And when we think of legal literacy in education, we're really thinking of an individual's capacity or their legal competence of how they understand and interpret education law and policies. This is very important because it is often left up to interpretation, and that can present many challenges when it's interpreted incorrectly. For this presentation in particular, we will look at legal literacy and refer to it as the latter definition that I just provided or suggested. It's very important that legal literacy is put at the forefront of our work in Catholic education. The importance of legal literacy is imperative, and that school personnel increase their legal literacy, since school leaders and teachers are usually among the first who are asked to respond to legal crises and dilemmas. Having a keen understanding and overview of the legal framework will assist our Catholic educators in improving their decision-making, preventing lawsuits, increasing confidence, and empowering their ability to inform and affect change within their context. However, we need to take a very proactive approach. And while some school officials are still unrealistically hopeful that this increased trend of threat and litigation go away, or that it will just pass on, it is an effective and ineffective approach to facing and dealing with legal issues facing teachers and school leaders. As noted by Sister Angie Shaughnessy, it is better to know the issues and the laws affecting those issues than it is to guess at them when confronting the situation. I like to focus on legal literacy as a problem of practice to really ground and frame our work. As it is highlighted by McCarthy et al., studies have found that principals and teachers lack legal literacy, and that this shortage of legal knowledge may often lead to the unintentional violation of students' rights and the inability to advocate for their own. McCarthy et al. Has identified two studies that support the notion that a lack in legal knowledge is common among principals and teachers. One of the studies shared found that the majority of teachers have never received any legal training. This study also found that teachers primarily learn about school law from other teachers who are also limited in their school law capacity. A second large-scale study found that when it came to students and teachers' legal rights, the majority of principals were misinformed and uninformed. So in a way, in a very sensitive and respectful manner, myself included as a former principal, we often found ourselves the blind leading the blind and trying to figure this out on our own. So it's important that we front load as much as we can to prepare our teachers in understanding legal school issues. It's important that Clementine and I share with you a little bit about our presentation outcomes. This is what we hope to be able to give you. And truthfully, we hope that you're able to do the best to meet the needs of your community with what we're able to offer today. The outcomes for this presentation are what I would like to humbly feel are simple and direct. It is to help us identify a problem practice that exists in Catholic education. That is to recognize that a lack of legal literacy is a real problem in our Catholic schools today. To accentuate the need of increasing legal literacy among Catholic school educators, recognizing the importance that teachers and administrators alike have to have a foundation of legal issues in facing Catholic schools today. And then lastly, we hope to create a tangible resource and best practice, if you will, for Catholic school principals to help close the legal literacy gap by supporting teachers with common legal questions and issues faced. My colleague Clementine will talk about something that we do with our place court teachers. That is a group of pre-service teachers that are housed within the Center of Catholic Education at Loyola Marymount University to further assist you in hopefully implementing a similar practice at your school site. Clementine.
Thank you, Antonio. Loyola Marymount University, our Catholic teacher prep program is called Place Corps. It stands for Partners in Los Angeles Catholic Education. As we move on, we will dive into a few more specifics about our program. Place Corps is LMU's nationally recognized Catholic Teacher Service Corps that is housed in the Center for Catholic Education within the School of Education at LMU. The foundations of our programs are three pillars, which is professional development, intentional community, and Ignatian spirituality. While going through the program, our Place Corps members commit to 2 years of teaching service, while at the same time earning a master's degree and teaching credential while serving as full-time teachers in primarily under-resourced Catholic schools. We serve in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, Orange, and San Bernardino here in Southern California. A unique aspect to the program is that placers do live with one another in intentional communities, and it offers them an opportunity to explore and strengthen shared values rooted in Catholicism. And it also provides an inclusive experience with a commitment to social justice. Place Corps is a proud member of two national organizations, the Catholic Volunteer Network and also the University Consortium of Catholic Education, known as the UCCE. One of our proud statistics that we like to share is that more than 80% of our Place alumni have remained in education, serving thousands of school children. And to that, about 70% of that number stay in Catholic education, which we are incredibly proud of. That makes this a strong, a formative program for Catholic educators. All right, as we move on to our next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about the 3 pillars for Place Core so you understand our program a little bit more. So the professional development pillar, which is one of the heaviest pillars for our placers. This is the pillar where we have our placers serve as teachers and primarily under resource schools, as mentioned in the Archdiocese of LA, Orange, and San Bernardino, but also pursuing a Master's of Arts in Education and a California preliminary teaching credential. So both being a full-time teacher Monday through Friday and a graduate student on the weekend. Our next pillar is intentional community. And during the Place Core experience, graduate students live in peer communities that foster growth and engagement. Our Place Core has 8 residences that house between 4 to 6 students here within our program. And our third pillar is Ignatian spirituality. And Ignatian spirituality really is a part of our Place Core experience where we offer an open and honest engagement in spirituality and faith. Next slide. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about the UCCE. The University Consortium for Catholic Education is a partnership of university programs nationwide joined by the common mission of recruiting and training faith-filled, energetic teachers to strengthen, sustain, and serve Catholic and parochial schools. All of our programs share 3 pillars in common. We have an education, a spiritual, and a community focused lens. In the summers, this is where our legal literacy professional development workshops happen. In the summer when we prepare our teachers before they step into the classroom through orientations, PDs, and classes. And as you can see here on this slide, these are the 13 programs nationwide that are part of the UCCE. One to highlight would be ACE, if you've heard of that one. It's housed at Notre Dame. It was the founding kind of Catholic teacher prep program that really inspired many of the other programs, including Place, to jump on board and find a way to create a formative program for Catholic educators. And now we are shaping and forming Catholic educators coast to coast. As we move on. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about the Legal Literacy in Action, the program that Sister Angie has shared with us and our placers. So Sister Angie, as we know, is an expert in Catholic school law. And so she shares her expertise with our new pre-service teachers. The goal in her presentation is really to provide a context and understanding of Catholic school legal issues. She provides a legal pretest to her placers in advance of her PD workshop, a simple true or false questions of 13 that are now on screen. And we go over that during the course of her presentation. The idea is that an assessment gauges the knowledge in advance, and it's used as a learning tool to gauge if they are an expert, kind of have medium knowledge, or a complete novice in these areas of Catholic school law. And if there's some growth by the end, that's all the better. Sister Angie also provides anecdotes as cautionary tales to eliminate points of consideration before taking any actions that may have legal ramifications. Students are often surprised, and they leave to reflect on these issues as they begin to navigate Catholic schools from an educator's perspective. As we move on. So one thing to kind of note is that we are a pre-service teacher program. So it's good to have a working knowledge of what a pre-service teacher is. In Education Week, an article was titled "Pre-Service Teachers Are Our Future." So let's prepare them for it. So pre-service teachers do join our program with little to no experience in teaching. Often teacher candidates are not majors in education. Few join with a teaching or credential certification, but many of them are learning literally from the ground up. So pre-service teachers also go through a period of guided supervised teaching, which is part of their credential requirements that happen in that first year within our program. And then what we do to enhance their knowledge before they get into the classroom is that we provide some summer professional development workshops along with coursework as we talk about adding tools to their teaching toolkit before they arrive get ready for their classes in late summer. The goal here really is to achieve confidence and competency in entry-level skills in the teaching profession. Next up, we want to talk about legal and ethical issues in a Catholic setting. There's a variety of topics that are touched upon, again, just giving us a sense of things to consider moving forward. Topics include legal ramifications of personal involvement with students, teachers' behavior that could be considered inappropriate, general liability issues, copyright issues, reporting of abuse, and the importance of written records. Let's move on. Another clear thing for novice teachers is to understand the importance of setting boundaries, really to avoid improprieties. And so we go through a list of do's, but we really primarily focus on the don'ts around setting boundaries. Questions to consider or to ask yourself that Sister Angie likes to talk about is, how would you feel if today's actions appeared in tomorrow's paper? That gives you something to think about. Let that question guide your actions. So if in doubt, seek advice before you take action. Better yet, if in doubt, just don't do it. And of course, we can always go back to that acronym of WWJD. What would Jesus do? Kind of think of it through that lens. And finally, school law recommendations for teachers. Sister Angie provides about 10 gems of wisdom that cover essentially the following themes. As Antonio mentioned before, be proactive, stay informed, be in the know. This is about leading with knowledge. Establish rules to guide behaviors. So set the tone in your classroom, and that way there are no questionable behaviors. Create a safe space to hear from students and realize that there's always two sides to every story. And always act with the safety of the students in mind. Let that really lead you in the classroom. Of course, don't leave your students unattended. If you need to walk away, make sure there's someone keeping an eye on them. And above all else, respect the dignity of all. That should really guide and frame behaviors within the classroom. Again, a couple of questions that Sister Angie would like to share with us is, when in doubt, to ask, what would a reasonable person do? What advice would you give someone in this situation? And again, WWJD, what would Jesus do? So great things to ponder and consider as for our teacher candidates as they are considering school law recommendations for teachers. Antonio?
Thank you, Clementine. And as every professional development or every talk really should end with this question, what now? So what do you do with the brief information Clementine and I have shared with you? These are just some points where I feel you can start and to really start to have a conversation with your faculty and staff. Although Clementine and I focus our legal literacy workshop with pre-service teachers, we have found, and we strongly believe, that all teachers should be exposed to the ongoing shift in legal issues. So the first place to start, we would recommend, is to identify common legal issues and questions being faced by Catholic educators. So looking at it at a very macro level, kind of understanding what is it that is being asked out there as we navigate this ever-changing space of legal issues in Catholic education. Once you've looked at the macro, really focus in on, what are your teachers asking? What are your parents asking? What common questions or dilemmas are being faced year in and year out that you felt you needed legal support or assistance with? So always going back to the questions, right? Are you asking the right questions to be able to get the right answers? A next good place to go is the analysis of your school's handbook. The reason why I like to direct principals to the handbook is because many times, unfortunately, I've experienced where some of the principals were not part of the development of their handbook, have inherited the handbook, and can't really articulate what's found within it. So there are different ways for you to be able to look at the different elements within your handbook and really assess them. Are they going to open up any possible litigation for the school? Are we really looking at our students, our faculty and staff through a holistic lens? Clementine referenced the look at the dignity of all people, right? Going back to your Catholic social teaching, how well is it aligned, or how well is your handbook aligned with our Catholic social teaching? So that analysis of the school's handbook is a great way to continue and or start this conversation. We'd also like to encourage our principals to engage in case study ethical dilemma scenarios. Clementine and I will share our contact information with you, where we'll be able to share with you different types of scenarios that we use with our pre-service teachers or our place court teachers. Of course, our case studies and ethical dilemma scenarios are derived from the wonderful work of Sister Angie Shaughnessy. So there are resources that we can point you to. In fact, at the end of our presentation, we'll have our reference page where we'll direct you to the two books that Clementine and I often look at to be able to provide the different scenarios for our placers to have conversations about. I want you to really take a moment at this time and think about, when was the last time you took the opportunity at a faculty meeting or a faculty and staff professional development to really consider the different types of ethical dilemmas that Catholic educators encounter. As you think about that, I really want, and if the answer is I can't think of one, as you know, as I suggested earlier, that's a wonderful place to start, because studies show us that many times principals and or school leaders don't want to start the conversation because it's difficult to have at times, right? But what are we learning? That legal literacy begins with the topic at hand, simply having a conversation. And the 3 bullet points that we just described of what now are going to be a great source of building confidence within your faculty. As you've learned, teachers are always at the front line, right, in dealing with their students and having to answer these different questions. Go back to your teachers, ask them what is it that they would like to know as they encounter different types of scenarios. But sometimes it's hard to articulate something if you can't even recognize it. So confidence is best built by looking at a series of issues that you'll be able to associate with the climate and culture of your school. Again, Clementine and I, as we share our contact info at the end, will be available to you to give you different types of issues and scenarios that we talk about in dealing with our pre-service teachers, kind of preparing them for the unknown. Here's a quick glance at the different resources that we use to help build our presentation. We really would love for you to focus on 3 great resources here. McCarthy et al. Has developed a wonderful text on legal rights of school leaders, teachers, and students. It is a book that includes law issues of our public school sector, charter sector, private school, and that includes our Catholic school sector. So it's a good way at looking at how issues or legal issues in education are overlapping across all different contexts. And also, we like to direct you to what we feel are 2 of the greatest resources in helping us support our place court teachers. Sister Angie's books titled Selected Legal Issues in Catholic Schools, and then The Law and Catholic Schools, A Guide to Legal Issues for the Third Millennium. We hope that you've enjoyed listening to Clementine and I as we partner with you in this wonderful work of Catholic education that we are all engaged in together. Know of our continued prayers and commitment to all of you. Clementine, would you like to share a few final thoughts?
Thank you, Antonio. I think here the main takeaway is that knowledge is power. And so to be informed at the upfront, then to be surprised on the back end would be really is actually the best attribute for incoming for teachers. So don't be afraid to have those tough conversations. Have them early so that way if you ever encounter them, then at least you'll have some knowledge and with which to pivot and to go from there. But lots of great resources here from Sister Angie, and then also the ones that Antonio shared. There are a lot of resources out there for you to be informed, to stay in the know, and so you won't be caught off guard at some point if an issue should arise. But again, it's all about staying ahead of the information. Thank you, Antonio.
Thank you, Clementine. And then lastly, as we have learned from the great Sister Angie, is, this is just a presentation from two practitioners. We always highly encourage you to go back to your legal teams in the diocese and advisors to be able to give you the best legal advice as you approach these different situations that sometimes were non-existent in 10, 15 years ago. But as you encounter these new scenarios, please feel free to reach out directly to your legal team at your diocese. I can be reached at the following email: antonio.felix@lmu.edu. And you can reach my wonderful colleague, Clementine Castro, at clementine.castro@lmu.edu. We thank you for your time and for your work in Catholic education. God bless you all.
God bless.